you're not going to achieve that sense of meaning by achieving. Like
Right.
getting more things done on the to-do list is not going to be the path to make that happen.
Right.
And so there's what is that thing that we're trying to make happen, and do we know it when it's happening?
That's a really good question that I don't know that I really know what I think about. Certainly just in my immediate direct experience, the the best times in life are either best in recollection, in hindsight, or they are, flow states in the moment, which as we know from flow states, right, can you be aware that you're in them? I think in some bodily sense you can be aware that you're in them, but you're not in them once you're thinking too hard about them in a verbal way. I don't know if it's quite the same point, but maybe it connects. I think that one of the strangest parts of this is that happiness feels like sort of the wrong framing for what we're talking about here. I'm always really, really fascinated by those moments in people's lives, and I've had a couple of them myself where somebody close to you is going through some sort of immediate serious crisis. There's nothing good about what's happening. You wouldn't want it. If you could have chosen for it not to be happening, it wouldn't be happening. And then in the middle of this emergency, it's just obvious that you've got some, like, your job is to, like, I don't know, do their dry cleaning. It might not be being a shoulder to cry on. It depends. It might be your job is something very mundane, to just keep someone, make your contribution to somebody weathering this crisis. And that sense of knowing that you're in exactly the right place, that, like, there is no question, there's no, it makes you realize how, I feel like among my friends, I have a good reputation of being quite good in a crisis, which feels very flattering until you think about it. What it really means is you're just incredibly ambivalent and indecisive in all other times, right? Because it's when you have a choice about what you should be doing, there is this great sense of sort of second guessing and fretting and being indecisive. And yet I think we all have these experiences when there isn't really a choice, when choice is taken away, when it's incredibly obvious what you should be doing to help in that moment, which are in some sense deeply fulfilling, even though they're not happy. And I think there's a clue there to what we're looking for in other times of life. It is this sense that there's not really any option of manipulating our experience, fitting a few more things in, worrying whether we're missing out on something else. All that sort of goes away in those times. I don't know if it's the same point, but it does seem really important to me.
Do you think what you're describing can exist, or is at least, well, let's just start with that. Can that exist without some interaction with another person? Because the example you gave requires another person, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this sense, in this case, it requires that you are there to help another person. So, which I want to talk much more about the use of time as a good versus sort of a shared good, but we'll come to that, because I think that's one of the most important points of the book, and there are many. But as I sort of rack my brain to think about the most joyful moments, and I say this as a 10 out of 10 introvert, I mean, I need endless amounts of time by myself to function. If I don't have that, I come off the rails. Yeah. But the truest joy I have, even as a 10 out of 10 introvert, is with others. And it makes me wonder, is what we're talking about here so much about the relationship of not just time, but time with others? I'll give you an example. So I play this game with patients where I sort of say, like, if you could be in perfect health indefinitely, so we're going to grant you eternal life, but you have to do it on a desert island. Now, it's a great desert island because you don't have to find your own coconuts. Like, everything you want is there, right? So we've somehow solved every problem, and away from the island, there are robots churning away, giving you everything you need. So you've got your Netflix, you've got your food, you've got your whatever, to your heart's content. You can have anything. The only thing you can't have is another human being. Are you happy? And most people, when they think about this for just a few minutes, come to the conclusion, no, it would be very difficult to be happy.
Right.
Whatever we define happiness as, that's such a sloppy word, but you know, fill in the blank, your positive valence, very difficult. I mean, what do you think of that, and what does that tell us here?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I think it's basically right. I think that we're talking about things that can only happen in some form of relationship. I would say that there probably can be such a thing as, you know, your relationship with parts of yourself. You know, that I think when people are journaling, for example, they are maybe in a relation with unconscious parts of themselves. I think you can be in relationship with the natural world in certain ways. But by and large, I think you're right that, you know, the deepest ways in which we're in relationship are with other people. And I mean, there's a million different angles to sort of endorse that point. Stated like that, it doesn't sound super controversial. I think where it connects to what I'm so interested in and I'm writing about in the book is that there's a sense in which other people, other consciousnesses are kind of in some way, they're sort of an affront to any idea that we can use our intellect to control our world, right? Because as soon as you're in any kind of even slightly intimate relationship or friendship with somebody else, it's like people have their own agendas. You're brought into an encounter with your limits, because you can't just like make the rhythms of family life go exactly as you want them to do. If you manage that, you find everyone else is very miserable, and that's not what you wanted. So we're sort of brought into this encounter with the fact that we are these finite beings. And I think that's really important and edifying for us somehow, because part of what is going wrong, at least for me in my personal experience, with the whole mastery of time approach is it's some notion that I ought to be able to solve the problem of life with my intellect, right? That I ought to be able to figure out the workflow and the scheme and the goal setting system and work life out. And other people are at once, you know, a constant reminder that you can't use your own intellect to work out life because everyone else is living their own lives and has their own agendas. And also that huge numbers of just very practical things that mean anything to us just can't be done except in some form of relationship. So whether what you care about is raising a family, making music, playing sports, pursuing a sort of a religious faith, or, you know, building a business, or being a political activist, like a million different kinds of things that energize people, but they all have that in common, that need to collaborate, and that understanding that like you don't get to run life in the way that I think we often feel that we want to. And actually, I give some examples in the book, right, of people who sort of get into the position where they do have an extraordinary amount of control over how time unfolds in their own lives, and then find themselves kind of lonely and miserable.